Welcome to the Sack of Sats podcast. I'm Pam Maldonado, joined by my girl KellyInVegas. So we're here to bring you all the analytics behind the NFL contest bets. Kelly, my girl, we are going to the Big 12 championship this week.
Yay.
I'm so excited.
I'm very excited too. I made a weird joke on Instagram and now everybody thinks I'm giving out free tickets. I am not. I was just saying that in response to Pam saying that she didn't want TCU to get snubbed. The good news is, unless they get blown out and some other wonky stuff happens, TCU is getting in anyway, based on at least the projections of how the college football playoff works. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I do think K-State's going to have a double-digit win, though. And maybe that's my purple glasses speaking, but we'll see how this one plays out. I'm really excited. A ton of K-Staters going to the game. Last time I got stuck in Longhornville with Pam, with lots of Longhorns fans. So I'm excited this time to be surrounded by K-State fans. Will make it a lot more enjoyable experience for me.
I have to be honest, I am torn because I want to see TCU in the playoff just because it's a Big 12 team that's not Oklahoma. And I'm so sick and tired of everyone saying the Big 12 doesn't belong in the playoffs. They're going to get blown out by whoever it is. Let's see it. I want proof of concept. So let's actually see what happens. So I would love to see TCU in the playoff. At the same token, I'm holding a 13-1 K-State to win the Big 12 title game.
Great
and I would
number.
love to see that cash in person.
Yes.
That's why I'm going.
That's going to be incredible to see it cash in person. I'm at 10-1. I was late to the party. I think it was you, Rico, who works with me at Barstool, and maybe one other. I had already bet the over 6.5 wins, minus 170. That is not something I normally do. Now, granted, my buddy Marco got, I think he laid 120 minus over 7, and then he was sweating there after a couple back-to-back losses by the Wildcats. So it's been a fun season. I'm excited. Then I'm headed to Baltimore on Sunday to see Ariel, who works with you at Yahoo. We're going to go to the Broncos-Ravens game. In hindsight, that game should have been a lot better. I mean, I expected the Broncos to be an 8-win team, and instead they're like a 2-win team.
And now they're 8-point dogs. So that's what we're getting to. It is week 13 in the NFL. Right now, we are sitting at 31-27-2. After we had that 5-0 week, things just kind of fell downhill, and I honestly don't know what to do about NFL right now. My best bet didn't cash last week. Yours did. Mine, I had two options. It was either going with the Chargers, and I last minute pivoted live on air to go to the Seahawks because the line was different for the contest. Neither worked out anyway, so it was a loss for me anyway. But I didn't love anything last week. There's a lot that I like this week, though.
Oh, good, because I don't love anything this week. I didn't love last week's card. I knew that my best bet with the Jags, 4, when it went to 3.5, those are usually the kind of things you like to see when you're holding a ticket in the NFL. It did not work out Thursday Night Football for Pats backers, but we'll see how this one ends up going this week. There's only about 3, maybe 4 games. I've actually only gotten to the window with 1. I bet the Raiders, which is going to be my best bet, +2 on Tuesday. But everything else, I'm just kind of treading water with right now. I've been doing really well in college football the last couple of weeks. Not on my parlay, of course, but on when I tweet it out, I got to love it. The top 3, 1 and 2 every single week for the last 6 weeks. Then the bottom 4, 5, 6, 5-1, 5-0, 6 and 2.
The dogs went out right. It's not just that they're covering the spreads, it's that they're winning.
Oh, yeah, Washington. Let's see. Last week, what did I have? There was another double-digit dog. It's just been one of those things that maybe I'm thinking too long about how my processes go, but they're still all the same. I mean, I have not changed anything for the last 6 years. I've just been doing it all the same, and some years it works out for me, some years it doesn't.
Well, just a reminder of what it is we are doing. We are in an NFL contest, picking 5 against the spread picks each week. Automatically in is Kelly's best bet. Automatically in is my best bet. I didn't like my best bet last week because it was on the fly, figure it out. This week, I love my best bet. So we'll go to yours first. You already mentioned that you love the Raiders. What do you got?
Hey, listen, Pam, a long time ago, I used to work for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, right? And we kept getting all this buzz. We're going to get the Raiders. We're going to get the Raiders. So we started doing a Raiders show. And I remember sitting there with my co-host, Brian, and being like, I'm never going to be a Raiders fan, because I grew up a Broncos fan. I'm supposed to hate the Raiders. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to kind of piss off the Las Vegas hopefuls about this Raiders defense. And I just laid into them. And at that point, it was week 8 or week 9, and they still had not gotten an interception. This defense has come a long way since then. They're still not great by any means, but I've liked the improvements I've seen week to week with this team, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Bottom line, the Raiders have been great divisional home underdogs, 11-4 against the spread in their last 15. I am not overthinking this one. As I mentioned, I hate this week's card. There wasn't anything for me to love, but that little nugget with knowing how banged up the Chargers are, how poor they've played on the road as of late, I got to go with the Raiders as my best bet.
The Raiders for the contest is -1. You were talking about them as an underdog.
You know, I really, one of these days, Pam, I'm going to log in and look at the contest lines before doing the show. I actually said this week on my Wager Talk show that I thought this game was going to go to pick'em. So for it to go to -1 is kind of crazy. Looking at the market, kind of the same move there. So I've got myself a really nice CLV trophy to start the week with the Raiders +2. We'll see how the rest of the way it pans out. Full disclosure, always been a joke with me and John Murray, a show that I used to do back in the day. Games don't land one in the NFL, right? But this one did open Chargers -3. And looking at the screen, there's a lot of pick'ems, which is where I thought it would be, and some -1. So this contest, they try to get ahead of some of these line moves, and it's always interesting because do you pump fake? Are you ahead of the market? Are you behind? I was ahead of the market on this one, but I do think the Raiders do win this game. I do like them in the spot as far as that divisional home dog goes.
So then you're probably going to see, you as a viewer, is on Sunday, Kelly's probably going to post her Raiders plus, but for the contest, you're going to see minus. So just know that there is the difference between there. So then
if the game ends in a tie, Kelly riots. We just throw a massive fit because the only thing funnier than games landing one in the NFL is a tie.
I know that this game is a higher game total. It's I think the line is at 51. I would probably still tease like both sides. Like if you can get 1.5 on, if you can get 7.5 on the Chargers and then 7.5 on the Raiders.
Pam, I already teased the Raiders. Yeah, absolutely. I if it gets to Chargers +1.5, I will tease the Chargers. 100%. You're right. I know the game is a higher total, but as we saw last night too, and I tweeted out this morning, there's a lot of divisional under still cashing at a 65 to 70% clip, depending on the total. I know it is higher, but I also did play that under as well, and I did tease it with the Raiders to start the week.
Yeah, and the Raiders are going to run all over the Chargers, and Justin Herbert's going to do what he does and play well as an underdog. So that could be a very competitive matchup. I love that. I love the T side. Great. My best bet, one I actually like. The lines didn't move. It's not different. It works out this week compared to last. I'm going with the Titans against the Eagles. I don't know why I just like find ways to fade the Eagles. It seems like somebody pointed out you're always against them. You show vulnerabilities, I'm going to go against you. That's what's happening. In the last 3 weeks, the Eagles are the 6th worst in the league for opponent points per play. Their defense hasn't been as stout as they were showing early in the season. And why? It's because they're actually facing some competent teams now. In the beginning of the season, you played a bunch of nobodies, and now you're actually faced with some level of competition. They're 6th worst in the league for opponent points per play. That's ahead of teams like the Bears and the Browns. While the Tennessee Titans are the 5th best, and that's behind teams like the 49ers and the Jets. So definitely some of the ones on top. What I love more recently, though, is that quarterback Ryan Tannehill, he has been one of my favorite quarterbacks to take on the props market, to take under his passing yards every fucking week, because without fail, he just got like 200 yards, 204 yards, 200. He doesn't pass. All of a sudden, he's passing like a madman, and he's fucking good at it. 255 passing yards in 3 games straight. That's the first stretch that he's had like that this season. That's the first stretch that he's had like this since December of 2019. So I don't know if it's because running back Derrick Henry is like injured, battling injury. He hasn't had a 100-yard rushing game in the last 3 games, but they're using him as a passing back. So where he's losing his yardage in rushing, he's making up for it in the receiving game. He's had back-to-back games of at least 45 receiving yards. So I don't know what's going on with this team, but it seems like they finally have adapted to the modern age of football. And I am here for it. Mike Vrabel, he is a hell of a good coach. I trust whatever he's figured out he's doing. He's trying to make some changes. And that's a perfect opportunity against the Eagles, who allowed 330 yards of total offense to the Washington Commanders, who allowed the Colts 72% passing completion, and allowed the Packers 8.4 yards per pass. So there's vulnerabilities against this defense. And Tennessee, they have the better defense. I'm taking Titans at +5. I love the a player prop for Derrick Henry to have over receiving yards just because he's been used more as a receiving back. I love the Titans. I don't know. They're one of those dogs that doesn't get a lot. They're one of those teams that doesn't get a lot of recognition because they're not flashy. They don't have a Joe Burrow. They don't have some of the best pass rushers in the league, but they still find ways to win and be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Pam, I sent you a short list this week, but as the week progressed, Titans did make its way to my long list. I don't think I'll be getting to the window with this Titans team. As we talked about every single week, I try to be very selective in the NFL because crazy stuff happens every single freaking week. If you want to use an example, the Falcons, where that team last week absolutely should have covered that game. Some crazy stuff happens. My only concern about the Titans, and the reason why I'm not going to bet it with my hard-earned money, last week, they kept settling for field goals.
Yeah.
I don't like when teams do that, but I do love this defense. Third-ranked rushing defense in the league. So you're absolutely right. And I'm sorry, Philadelphia fans. We do find ways to fade you. I'm actually going to the game in the Meadowlands the following week after Army-Navy, and I'm already looking for reasons to fade you.
And I'm sure that I can give you plenty because I find them every week. They have been on my card pretty often, more often than not. So then those are our best bets. Kelly's best bet, she's going with the Raiders, and I am going with the Titans. That's the only bet that I've made too. I took it early in the week, took it at +5 for the contest. It's 4.5. I love it. All right. So then our other three. You said you didn't love a lot. I actually do like a lot. So I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Kelly, I'm going to do something different with you. And I don't even think that I ever pointed it out. So what I did differently was instead of automatically giving you my opinion on a game, I'm just asking you, what do you like? And then seeing if we match up and then going from there.
Okay.
So then we'll go ahead and continue on that route. And I'm just going to go down the list. Let's start with the Jets and the Vikings. What do you got?
Oh, I don't want to bet this game. I'll be really honest with you, Pam. This looks like a terrible game.
Really?
Listen, you've got this Minnesota team that I was really high on to start the season, right? And they're kind of like the Eagles in that sense, where now we're starting to see a little bit of regression, right? Where maybe Minnesota's peak was beating Buffalo in Buffalo, and maybe the bottom of the barrel was getting destroyed by the Cowboys, right? This is where it gets tough. Mike White done an excellent job, well, at least in one game, right? But the Jets defense is going to be the question mark here, right? If they can get to Kirk Cousins, it might be a long day for the Vikings, because that's exactly what we saw in that Cowboys, whether it was their defensive line or their pass rush. He got sacked 7 times. On the flip side, I feel like this is kind of a buy low spot for the Vikings. Only -3. Looks so easy. Like, come on, Kelly. Don't you just want to lay 3 with Minnesota? So for me, it's a straight up pass. But if you have something you love, I'm willing to entertain it.
Then you're going to the game. I lean to the Jets side just because of that defense, and it's Kirk Cousins. But I mean, they also have the best wide receiver core. So yeah, it could be a buy low. It could be a time to buy on the Jets, who are a legitimate, like, potential Super Bowl contender with the fucking great defense.
That's crazy.
Time will tell. But we'll move on. You're going to the game, the Broncos and the Ravens. So then do you have a side for this game?
Yeah, I teased the Broncos. Or, excuse me, I teased the Ravens, against this terrible Broncos offense. I can't take the points here. I mean, one would think, hey, maybe Russell Wilson's going to have a great game somewhere.
We've been saying that every week.
Where? Where's it coming from? Nathaniel Hackett is a hack. I tweeted last week, when are the Walmart people going to fire him? I don't know what's going to happen here, because the Ravens have just been one of those teams that's also been on that kind of roller coaster ride. I obviously bet against them last week on the road against a really solid Jags team who, even though they'd only had 3 wins under their belt, I think was obviously getting disrespected in the line. But the Ravens still don't play 4 quarters of football. And that's kind of my problem. I can't lay it with the Ravens. I teased them down to 2.5, and that was early on. So I had something to cheer for in the game. Listen, from what I've heard, and the reason why I can't back the Broncos here is not only are they 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 road games, Russell Wilson has a very similar birthday to me, which is also weird because I didn't see that one coming. But I do think that he has lost the locker room. I really do. And that's sad because he's only been there for 6 or 7 months. And maybe he had
like
partially
a nice
lost.
guy.
He seems like a nice guy, but you have to remember, he's kind of a dork. And we've known that all along, right? Like, that's why he got along with certain guys in Seattle. Not to bring up religion, but they would go to church with him and shared similar views.
Yeah.
But there's guys like in the NFL that want to go live life and they want to go have a lot of fun. And they really like Chad Kelly. And now he's, winning a Grey Cup in the CFL. But it's funny because not everybody is going to get along personality wise. But you would think if your wife throws you this massive birthday party, that your entire team would show up. And that was not the case. And that kind of tells me that, hey, maybe there's a lot of guys that don't like him. I mean, obviously, there's been things all over social media that have been said as well by players. I don't want to touch this game outside of that Ravens team. I don't trust this Ravens team. If I was to bet them, I would probably take the Ravens in the first half. But I'm definitely, I'm just not. I mean, the Ravens, on top of the fact, have just owned the Broncos. I know that as a fan, perspective. So I think the Raiders are going to get the win. It could be something crazy that happens. Backdoor cover. Who knows? The Broncos offense is just so stagnant.
I do like the Broncos, and I don't care about their locker room shit and all that. That's also stuff you can't quantify. So I can only go.
No, you definitely can't. But it does have. Am I wrong to think that it has to kind of come into play?
Absolutely. No, I think it does come into play, yeah. But I'm kind of banking on the fact that the Ravens defense is trash. And Denver, as bad as they are, they still are one of the better defenses in the league.
Absolutely. Better defense plus the points.
Denver is 3-8 against the spread this season. However, the Broncos have not been 8-point underdogs yet this season either. And the Ravens are 1-7 against the spread. 1-7 against the spread as favorites of 3 points or more. So they're not covering games either. And it's because their fourth quarter defense is absolute garbage. They are 32nd in the league for fourth quarter opponent points allowed, which is exactly why your Jags ticket came through last week. Because they were down 19-10 early in the fourth quarter. Fought back to win 28-27. That's kind of expected, though. That's not a shocker because that's kind of been the MO of the Ravens. They look great for 3 quarters, and then they just lay a complete dud. 32nd in the league for opponent fourth quarter points. Now, can Russell Wilson capitalize on that? Oh, this should be it. If not now, then probably never. And you got to really start to contemplate then. Maybe let him go. I don't care what the salary cap is and all that, but if he cannot score some points against this Ravens defense, at least in the fourth quarter, you got to cut your losses.
Yeah, it's tough. There's other games that I would prefer, but if you really like the Broncos,
yeah, we'll move it along.
I understand exactly why you'd want to take them.
We'll move along. Maybe pencil it in. But what's another game that you do like have strong conviction on?
Oh, well, I don't really have a strong conviction. But I kind of have to wonder situationally with Deshaun Watson going back to Texas, Houston, if you will. It's kind of an interesting thought process here. Here's a Browns team we're asking to lay a ton of points on the road. Everybody wants to tease this Browns team just to get down to win. And at 7, I don't recommend doing that. I like the Texans here. Deshaun, what we saw a little bit during preseason, he was kind of rusty, Pam. We're going to see. I'm kind of curious to see how he's – I mean, he hasn't played for, 18 months?
Yeah. We haven't seen him in 2 seasons.
That's kind of the interesting thing here. Now, they're going to have to rely on, Chubb. But, if he turns the ball over here, this could be a really interesting matchup. Now, on the flip side, my big reason why the Texans scares me and why I probably won't bet them is because they don't have a very good rushing defense. And you have a two-headed monster with Cleveland. If they give up 200 yards on the ground, how are the Texans going to cover this? I don't know. But I do think that they can contain Chubb and Kareem Hunt somehow, some way. This is going to be a, if you will, a closer game than on paper. Houston does really well against bad teams. And by calling them bad teams, I mean like sub 500 teams. So I will say that. And the Texans have owned them last 7 games. They are 0-7 against the spread versus the Texans. So if you ask me to pick a second one that I lean towards, I don't love, but I do like the 7. And the fact that it hasn't went to 7.5 is just almost like, hey, what do the bookmakers know?
I'm not opposed to this at all because I actually put this in my other contest card. Houston is 4-6-1 against the spread this season, but they're 4-2 against the spread as underdogs of 7 points or more. And you're talking about maybe if they can figure out a way to stop the run game from the Browns, that's not going to happen. But I think there's a potential here that the Texans offense can potentially keep pace on the run game because the Cleveland Browns are just as bad on defense against the run as the Texans are. They're 25th in explosive rushing yards allowed. On the road, the Browns' rushing defense has allowed 202 rushing yards from Atlanta. They allowed 160 from Baltimore, 195 from Miami. The Dolphins are 28th in the league in rushing yards, and Miami had 200 yards of rushing offense. So there's a potential here that running back Dameon Pierce, he has only 2 100-yard rushing games. Both of them were at home, including 139 against the Eagles last month. So I don't think that it's going to be a defense story. I think it's going to be, can Dameon Pierce go head-to-head with Nick Chubb? There's a potential here for the back door. I'm with you. I don't know if there's going to be any room for Deshaun Watson, whose name I don't even care to speak. Yeah, like there's potential here. So I'm down to put that on if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Is there a second higher? Okay. Tell me this is not just like an easy lock it up underdog. And this is me asking like the Saints against the Bucks, because the Saints, you're talking about the Texans own the Browns. The Saints own Tom Brady and the Bucks. So
listen, Pam, this is my biggest problem with this Saints team this year. I wanted Jameis Winston. I bet the Saints to win the NFC South. I bet them over their season win total. I know Jameis got hurt, but the fact that Andy Dalton is still under center drives me bonkers. I'm going to be at this game with Grandma and Stephen Che from work. So it's going to be really fun. Grandma's a Saints fan. Che's a Bucks fan. And I bet the under. So that is all I have in this game. But the Saints, the reason why I said, okay, you want me to lay $3 with the Bucks to win this division? I got the Saints a little over, I think, plus like 375. I'd have to double check that. But that being said, it's because the Saints own the head-to-head with the Bucks.
Yeah.
Now, the game in New Orleans was my best bet, I think, like week 3 or 4. Besides 3-3 at half. Mike Evans, fist fight breaks out. All hell breaks loose. Tampa ends up winning and covering that one easy. But I think the Saints remember that. And these two teams hate each other. New Orleans, if that defense can hold Tampa to under 20 points like they have the last 4 meetings, I think that this plus 3.5 is a gift. Gift.
And last week against the 49ers, who's supposed to be the best defense in the league and supposed to be the Super Bowl champs, how are they only able to put up 13 points against the Saints? Like, it was 2 field goals and a touchdown. Like, that's very kind of indicative that this Saints defense is still very much legit. And
absolutely.
Now you're going up against the Brady, who has struggled all season. And I keep saying that he's going to turn it around, and he hasn't. Now, here's the caveat. You have the Saints, who are 0-5 against the spread on the road. But then you have the Bucks, who are 0-4-1 against the spread at home.
Yeah, they're terrible at home.
It's bad versus bad. You kind of take the hook, don't you? I'm backing
Something's got to give.
Defense. 7th against the pass. The Saints defense historically has given Brady. I'm talking about how much they own Brady. And typically, yes, in 6 games against New Orleans, Brady has thrown 58% completion, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Since week 7, this defense has also improved. They've allowed just 5 total touchdown passes, limiting opposing quarterbacks to 6.2 yards per pass. That's good for second best in the NFL. So I know it's Monday and they won him the first time. We've always talked about how difficult it is to beat a team twice. This is the bounce back spot opportunity, I guess, for the Saints, who historically own Brady and the Bucks. Do you feel strongly about this one, or do you want to move on?
Nope, I like it. And that'll give me something more to cheer for on Monday night.
And Grandma will be happy because she gets to cheer for the Saints.
You know, I will say this. Grandma is also we can't quantify it, but Grandma is also undefeated at Saints games. Remember last year when I took her to the game, they were 9-point underdogs, won the game outright. It was incredible. We had a great time. I'm pretty sure everybody around us hated me.
Well, then how about then a 5th game? Is there another game that you feel like, all right, I like this one a little bit more than most?
So there's a couple of different ones that are way down on my list that I considered. And I'm going to go with Cincinnati. If you want me to pick between the last 2,
Can do it.
I'm gonna.
Like Chiefs.
You like the Chiefs?
I do.
Okay,
Like
then we're gonna skip it. We're gonna skip it. The only other one that I could really say, like definitively, that I would consider would be the Falcons +1.
Ooh.
And the line move is really interesting here. The Falcons, that's my other concern, is money's coming in on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And while the Steelers have shown some moments of greatness lately, right? We've seen some decent moments from Kenny Pickett. They've got a strong running game. Can they run against Atlanta, I guess, is my question. And we know Atlanta can run against the Steelers, but are they going to even try to throw the ball? I mean, they should. Pittsburgh has a terrible pass defense, but we haven't really got to see Marcus Mariota like air it out a ton. And in my defense, somebody's going to jump in the comments and say, well, this game, I haven't watched that much Falcons this year. I just really haven't been involved in a lot of their games. I watched last week versus the Commanders because my buddy Adam, it was his best bet. I was flipping back and forth. This is way down on the list. I mean, this was below the Titans.
Yeah,
as far as like games I was willing to consider.
Atlanta, I mean, they shouldn't be able to run against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers suck against the pass, but they are fucking stout against the run, and that was my mistake last week, trying to fade them. And Atlanta, after going 6-0 against the spread to open the season, they're now 1-5 against the spread since.
Yep,
that's 30th.
What regression is a bitch?
The what? Oh yeah. I don't love that because I do.
No. What about going against your favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys? 11 points, too many?
The Colts?
I know. Isn't that gross too? That's what I mean. I don't love this week. I just don't, Pam. How about this? How about I flip the script on you? You give me one that you really like because reality, you've only given me the Titans so far. Well, I take that back. You gave me the Saints.
I would say just because of like situationally speaking, Broncos would be up there, but I totally understand that's why that's a fade. So I would say this one that I probably have a stronger opinion on would be, what do you think about Washington at the Giants? Like I kind of believe in the Commanders. Like I am a strong proponent for Heineke and this team, and I think the defense has gelled together. Is there any?
I don't have a strong opinion. I will say this. I tease the Giants, but that's just because they fit the Wong teaser scenario, right?
Right.
Low total, over the touchdown. It was kind of just one of those spots. Listen, the Commanders should not have covered last week. We all know that, but they did. And they just have been winning and covering games. Yeah, I mean, is Chase Young coming back? I was kind of told last week that he was, questionable. They activated him, but then we didn't see him. And I think him being back for this defense is huge. I think that gives them such an edge. I think it gives that defense a lot more confidence. And I'm still seeing he's questionable. But if he was a go, I could definitely be talked into the Commanders here.
So the Commies 6-0-1 against the spread in the last 7. That's the best in the league. 4-0 against the spread as a favorite. But the Giants are 6-1 against the spread as an underdog. So my whole thing was, I don't know how the Giants are going to score because nearly 60% of the touchdowns by New York comes via the run. Washington is the 3rd best in the NFL for limiting opponent rushing scores. So since week 5, the Commies defense, 5th best in opponent completion rate, 6th best in opponent yards per pass. More importantly, 3rd best in pressure rate.
Listen, I get why everybody's rushing to bet against Washington. It's probably the same reason why you and I were looking to bet against Philly there for the last few weeks. I don't hate it. I don't hate that play at all. What's the line in the contest?
Always weird and confusing for me, but
is it 2.5 in the contest, which is what it opened at?
It is 2.5, yeah.
And the market, of course, is hovering around 1 right now. These are the type of things I sometimes overthink myself, Pam, because I am such a big screen watcher, right? Like I've got it open over here and I'm always looking, and sometimes I allow myself. But if you did that last night with the Bills in the reverse line movement, you got smoked. Yeah. It doesn't work, and I don't recommend betting on that. But sometimes I feel almost odd stepping in front of that line move, if you will.
Well, then the only other one that we haven't talked about is the Dolphins and the 49ers. To me, my initial thought was oh, I fucking love the Dolphins. I love them every which way. Take the plus, take the money line. But then I looked into it deeper, and yeah, like they're missing their left tackle in Teron Armstead. And last week when Tua Tagovailoa, when he left the game in the first half, he left at the half. He didn't come back in the second half. Armstead,
and they didn't score a single point.
Miami was shut out in the second half. He's listed as doubtful, but also written as still has a chance to play. So I don't really know about that. But I mean, Tua Tagovailoa had 4 sacks without Armstead there on 11 dropbacks. Like, that's kind of like a big fucking deal. So now, like, if you give me the same type of pressure and Armstead's not going to be there, so just because of that, that's literally the only reason why I'm like, if he plays, I'm all over Miami. If he doesn't play, I'm all over San Francisco. So that's why
I like San Francisco. San Francisco's on my way long list because, like, I obviously go through all of the games. And the reason why is because San Francisco's been one of the best ATS teams in a while. They're 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 games. Now, you mentioned that offense versus New Orleans defense last week. It was like all of a sudden they hit a brick wall. Like they were cruising and it was done deal.
And Miami's defense is worse on the road than they are at home.
It is, but can the 49ers defense slow down the Miami offense if Tua does play? Because this would open 5. It's
Tua playing. It's Armstead that worries me.
Okay, so Tua is playing.
Yeah, no, it's Armstead. Okay. It's the left tackle. So when he was in the lineup, they scored all the points in the first half. But as soon as he left out and he didn't return in the second half, the Dolphins were shut out in the second half, and Tua was sacked 4 times on 11 dropbacks. Like that just tells you how significant of a role having Armstead in the line on the offensive line matters. So right now he's listed as doubtful, and if that is the case, then I do like the Niners. But if he...
Yeah, I like the Niners here in this spot, Pam.
Would you like to plug that in, or do you feel stronger about Washington over the Giants or Broncos over the Ravens? Those would be our 3 options, I think.
I definitely can't do the Broncos. I'm going to be really honest with you. And then you can text me when they beat Ariel's team outright. Ha, 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 I hope you enjoy your Broncos win. And then I lose the Ravens teaser. But all jokes aside, I don't feel strongly about the Broncos at all. So I'd like to cancel them out. I don't hate the Commanders pick. I'm not usually a big fan of laying road chalk, and I don't like the line move, but I agree with the entire analysis on the game. Is it 3.5 for the Niners in this one?
It's 4.
It's 4.
It went up. Like the other contest has 3.5, and this one is 4.
Okay.
And the current line is 4.
I'm going to let you pick which one of those 2.
No!
Yes!
I picked the Patriots last night, so I'm already off to a hot start.
Fine, then we're taking the Niners. Done.
Do it. I'm fine with that. Just because, like, early in the week, it was Dolphins, and then news came out about Armstead, and then it's, okay, Niners.
Yeah. I get you. It's tough. It's tough. Listen, think long, think wrong.
No, yeah, and I've always thought about, like, that's always going to be the number one thing for me. How's your offensive line? Oh, it sucks? Great. I'll fade it.
Well, that's true too.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, well then those are our 5 against the spread picks for the week 13 of the NFL. Kelly's best bet is Raiders +1 against the Chargers. My best bet is Titans +4.5 against the Eagles. The other 3 that we came up with is the Texans +7 against the Browns, the Saints +3.5 against the Bucks, and the 49ers laying 4 against the Dolphins, under the assumption that Armstead will not be playing. So then that's what we're going, our 5. I don't mind this card at all. When I come to you sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, I love this week, it's because I found a best bet that I feel confident in. Not because I love the entire slate of games that are up on the board. And so that's
listen, when they make these schedules, right, they've got all these ideas, and that's why we're starting to see games flexed out of prime time, for other games. It sucks, but it's true. Like, I think the Broncos closed their season went till 10 or something, and I remember my buddy was like, what do you think? I go, take the under. Find me a 10. I can't find a 10 anywhere in the marketplace. How could you at 8, I understand why people liked the over, what they thought they were going to see from certain teams. So now here we are over halfway through the season, and the cream's rising to the top here. And that's where we're going to have to kind of push through with, what do we have left? 7? No.
Like 5
more weeks. 5 more weeks. Wow.
Yeah. So then those are our 5 against the spread contest picks in the NFL. You can follow us on Twitter. Make sure to follow Kelly at KellyInVegas. You can follow me on Twitter at PamelaM35. Do make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know what you think of our picks. And then that does it for another episode of Stack of Stats. I will see you at the Big 12 championship game.
Yay!